Okay, so without further ado, I would like to welcome you to the second annual Equity Conference put on by Palm Springs Unified School District, in particular the Family Engagement Center. My name is Vera Johnson, and I will be one of your presenters for today.
And I am Sue Drummond. I am your other presenter today. We would also like our moderator and our translator to please introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lasagna Pitts and glad to be here. And hopefully I'll do a good job as moderator for today, a facilitator, I should say.
Good morning. My name is Monica. I work with the Family Center. We welcome you all this morning. And if anybody needs Spanish translation, I am here to do it. It will have to be in the chat. Buenos días. ¿Alguien necesita traducción? Por favor, díganme en el chat. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of you are here. You may have heard the term microaggressions, but you may not know exactly what they are. So the topic of our breakout workshop for today is, are microaggressions really small? With no pun intended. So for our conversation today, we are going to use the term microaggressions quite a bit, and we are going to take some time to illustrate three of the most common microaggressions and how they appear not just in the lives for us as adults, but in the lives of those who are either students, they may be people that you work with. The importance of understanding microaggressions is so that you can understand how it has a long-term effect, possibly on our young people, if it goes unaddressed. And some of you growing up may have said, oh, he keeps picking on me, or he keeps calling me names. I can honestly say growing up, I didn't know there was a term for that. I just thought, oh, they're picking on me, or I'm being bullied, et cetera, et cetera. But I never knew the long-term effects of it until really I started educating myself on it and being part of this work at Palm Springs Unified. Particularly, I'm at Desert Hot Springs High School.
All right, and as Vera said, there's three different types of microaggressions that we're going to be focusing on. The first one is called micro assault, and it is the conscious or intentional discriminatory action or racial epithets, white supremacist symbols, etc. So these are your comments like, that's so ghetto, calling someone an illegal alien, no homo, retarded, lame, that's so gay, hoe and slut. So words like that we often hear, throughout the campus, not so much on every specific campus, but just terms that we hear that we're kind of focusing on right now.
And the one thing with the micro assaults is sometimes I think of, you have the hourglass and you turn it upside down. The grains of salt grains of salt, sand, they seem like it's just one little thing, but what happens when it's turned upside down and all of it comes out? You see one side that's empty and one side that's very full. If you can think of microaggressions like that, okay, if you only hear one, it's kind of empty, but as time passes and all the grains of salt fill the other side, then you become full. And then what do you do with that? The next one is called micro-invalidations. And micro-invalidations are verbal or nonverbal communication that subtly convey rudeness and insensitivity and demeans another individual. For instance, you're Asian, why aren't you good at math? You're acting so sensitive. Is it that time of the month? Are you sure you're gay? I bet I could change your mind. Where are you really from? And I don't even see you as Black. Those are just the very small ones that are common, but I know when I was growing up in school, when it came time for Black History Month, as we are here, or we're learning about slavery, whenever the topic came up, everybody's head would whip around and look at me, because oftentimes I was the only Black person in my classes. And I had to break the news to him. I wasn't there when it happened. All I can do is give you accounts of the impact it had on my family, but I didn't realize the impact that it also had on me trying to be the spokesperson for my race in instances like that.
All right. And then the third type of microaggressions is the micro insult, verbal or nonverbal attack meant to hurt the intended victim by questioning their racial heritage. So anything from you were born in Canada, you have a mental disability, you seem perfectly normal to me. You know, my son, who's really brown, when he was in high school, the big one he had was, well, you're not going to college anyway. And, you know, he had a lot of teachers saying things to him that now he did not go to school in our district, by the way. But just hearing things that really, like Vera was saying with the grains, things that maybe one or two didn't impact him, but over time started to doubt his own abilities based on these comments that were constantly coming at him.
And also in the area that we live in, you'll see a lot of, maybe not a lot of, but you'll see enough biracial people out there that sometimes people say, well, what are you? I'm a human being. How do you tactfully say, oh, are you mixed? Or do you have this heritage or that heritage? And sometimes, and yes, that takes some sort of tact to ask somebody, well, are you mixed? Or that, especially if the mom, whoever is with you at any given time doesn't kind of match the constructs that, wait, you're this and you're that, but then how did you come along? I had a friend when our kids are close in age. She's Filipino and her husband's Filipino and she's white. They would ask her and her baby, oh, where did you adopt, you know, is this baby adopted? And it's like, no, this is my baby. But just because the daughter didn't look like her mom, those are the assumptions that were made. So microaggressions overall are the everyday, nonverbal, and verbal and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages that target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. So anybody can receive these microaggressions if you are considered the minority of a particular group. Now, some people would say, well, I'm a white male. How could I be experiencing microaggressions? But what if you were a white man in a predominantly Black or Hispanic area? It's not particular to, oh, only minorities will experience it. However, that's the context in which it's usually explained. But all of us in this room, it could be based on religion, it could be based on a variety of different things. If you are the minority at any given time when those comments are said, if you're reading them, sometimes you hear them on movies, in television, all of those different things, those are defined as micro assaults and microaggression.
All right, we're going to show a short video. And the idea here is to look for what microaggressions did you notice in this video.
Hold on, sorry.
Black girl. Oh, she has.
I apologize. I can't get it big. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're so pretty for a black girl. Oh, she has a Jew nose. Oh, your hair would look so good if it was straight. Jews are so cheap. Why are you so cheap?
Do you speak good English?
How are you an Iraqi Jew?
I think the person saying microaggression kind of doesn't really think about it.
This person decided it was my friend, and like I was astonished that they would like say something like that.
You don't want to make a big deal about it, but then it's also like you just said something that offended me, so I feel like I should speak up.
Because they're micro, because they're very subtle, they're small, you feel like you don't have a reason to be upset. You're overreacting, and people even can make you feel that way when you bring it up.
They're like, oh, you can't take a joke. You're making too big of a deal of this. Why are you overreacting?
Don't take it so seriously. It was just a joke. Chill out.
Say like, oh no, I actually love Black people. I love people of color. Like, they try to just minimize the situation. If someone feels hurt by a microaggression, it shouldn't just be pushed to the side. It definitely has negative impacts and like leads to people disliking who they actually are.
Those kinds of subtle offensive comments can build up over time, and they can have like a deep psychological effect, and they can make you feel bad, and they can make you doubt yourself.
We try to just use jokes to like make things less awkward or like ease social experiences, but it is important because you need to like be aware of what you're saying and like who you're speaking to.
Think of what you say and how it can affect the person you're saying it to.
So how many of you have had conversations with young people about this very topic, especially as it's being expressed by these young people in the video?
Feel free to just unmute yourself and chime in.
Oh,
I just
do.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead, Serge.
Okay. Yeah, my son has issue like in school, and we have to talk about that. His wife is biological family, they're Puerto Rican, and they pick on him. He dressed differently. He's not gay, but they call him a lot, and sometimes he get mad. And I have another child, he's a foster child, he's Latino, big guy, and same thing, they pick on him, killing dinners, all that stuff. And he has issue, learning disability, and he fight, but he try. It's bad, but sometimes I have to talk with them a lot. But they're coming better. But it's always an issue now. Every week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody else?
Christiane, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yes. Hello. I'm a school counselor in a private school. And I deal with this all the time, not just microaggressions against myself. I'm an African-American woman, but a lot of students come in to my office to complain about comments that are made, sometimes from the teachers inadvertently, or sometimes and mostly from other students. And we're dealing with a situation recently where a Hispanic student is dealing with a racist incident that happened in the locker room. So this is something that happens all the time. It's I can honestly say weekly that I have students come in to say that they've been hurt by something, and whether or not they ask me if they should be hurt by it, or so this is a really important topic. I'm glad to see that we're dealing with this topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate comments from both of you. The one thing that is hard especially for kids, I'm at the high school level, and kids at the high school level, I'd really say any level, but mainly middle school and high school, they feel like if they talk to somebody about it, then they're being a snitch. And you know what happens if you're a snitch. And so oftentimes when conversations do come up or comments are being made in a very group space, initially, the conversation will be talked about, and then kind of break it up into smaller groups, because at the end of the day, you want the person who is causing the harm to be aware, to know, and to understand how it affects that person or the group that they're directing their comments towards. But then the other part is, how do you deal with the student or even adult who is receiving the microaggressions? Sometimes they'll say, oh, they're just joking, or they trivialize it to the point where if the student doesn't feel heard, the next time it happens, they will not speak up. And then it will layer on top of layer on top of layer. And so that's one of the things that I really appreciated from what Dr. Mohammed had said. It was about, I took a picture of it. connection plus challenge equals change. And that's the one thing, if our students can connect with one person on campus, that is their connection to the school. And some of these challenges, it won't be as difficult if they have somebody that they can count on. So here's a situation where, can you see the screen? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is a student who's walking into an advanced placement class, and teachers, adults, students, we are all capable of micro assaults, microaggressions. My whole thing is, if you finally realize that you are committing such an act, it's not what happens right then and there. You can apologize, but it's how do you grow and how do you create a climate where conversations can happen? Before, when we were in COVID and we were not in school, we had a courageous conversation so that we could address these topics head on and hopefully make change and move forward, even if it's baby steps around this issue. So this is a young lady, she walks into class, and here's one of the comments that's made. So in the back of the class, you have this sign, or it's a poster that says, focusing on class rank can intensify students' sense that intelligence is a fixed trait, which may worsen stereotypes and worsen stereotype threats. Nowadays, all students have ID numbers. And so that's how student ranks are listed. A lot of things that would be considered confidential are displayed via ID numbers. So if this would have been students' names where they could put a name with the actual comment that's on the board, how do you think that would make students feel? Earlier I said, oh, about being Asian and being good at math. What if those kind of stereotypes am I perpetuating the stereotype that really isn't true, or how can I dispel that? Here's the next comment.
Okay, so in this one, the teacher is reminding the class, remember your online research papers due Friday. Gabe, you can use the computer lab at lunch. So that's just, putting it out there in front of the whole class that the student doesn't have access or a computer at home. And I can't tell you in my years in this district and then with my son's friends in other districts, how many students have had comments that have told me about comments from teachers that have blatantly made them feel bad about a situation that was out of their controls in front of others.
Exactly. And here's the next one. Mia, I know you had some trouble with the last lab chart, but a lot of girls have difficulty with that sort of thing. I gave you extra points because your drawing of the habitat was great. That's another stereotype, that math, science, that's hard for girls, but they're good at creativity and arts and crafts, that kind of a thing. So although it may not seem like a microaggression or a microassault, that in fact could be one.
And then this one is, we'll be doing a pig anatomy today, Ben. Why don't you do the dissection? And Amy, you can take notes. So tying back to what Vera just said about, different sexes can do different things or would even be interested in different things. I too, again, have had students doubt that they could do something because they've just always been told, oh, girls don't do that. And sometimes it's in school and other times it's even at home where they come to us with these, predisposed ideas of what they can and can't do based on their sex.
Yes. Are you sure you're in the right room? This is AP biology, implying that the student isn't worthy or is not capable of such a class like AP biology. And that has happened, and I have seen it with my own eyes and heard it.
Oh, Caroline, you're from Carver High. You should probably sign up for our after-school tutoring program. So just making an assumption that coming from a high poverty school will mean that this particular student is academically behind. And again, some of these things aren't even at school. Some of them the students come to from home as well.
And I'd just like to piggyback on what Sue said about the the comments that are made at home, especially if you have an older sibling. Oftentimes that older sibling, I used to teach a class, AVID, where it was about trying to get kids to go to college straight away. But a lot of times in some of the homes, the kids were often ridiculed by their family. Oh, if you go to college, do you think you're going to be better than me? Or why do you want to leave? You need to come home and stay here because you need to have a family and grandkids. And that's particular to a female. But those are the things that if you keep hearing it and hearing it and hearing it, you're not going to think that you're ever capable of anything else.
And
So now we're going to present. Oh, go, Sue.
I think there's just a couple comments in
Yes,
the
please.
chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and read them while you're getting to the next screen. One is from Judy. Trivializing in middle school is such a big problem, and incidents are so often not dealt with and learned from because the conversation stops. And then another comment from Anne. I know my daughters had to deal with this problem during Black History Month because the teachers would read a book about Black history. So then they would be called Negro and Black. Did either one of you want to talk any further about your comments or just leaving the comments?
I'm fine to just leave it at that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for participating. Go ahead, Vera.
Okay, and the one thing that I'd like to say about the book and Black History Month kind of thing, everybody thinks that, okay, first off, February only has 28 days. It's the shortest month of the year. Why do we only talk about it during February instead of talking about it throughout the year? And then it is not, I don't want to say more attention is brought to it, but it will be more of the norm instead of the exception to the rule. Okay, here's a scenario that Sue's going to read to us, and this is an actual scenario that has been modified a little bit for the purposes of protecting identity, but just imagine that this is taking place in Palm Springs Unified.
Okay, so the scenario is Juan Rodriguez is a student at Palm Springs High School. He is one of the few transfer students in his first period class from Desert Hot Springs. Juan takes the bus to school and is tardy to first period for the second time in 1 week. His teacher comments, looks like the Desert Hot Springs buses are late again. Some students laugh at the remark. Although he is embarrassed, Juan doesn't respond and tries to brush off the comment. After class, Juan approaches his teacher and shares how much the comment bothered him.
So we're going to give you a few responses on how possibly the teacher could have reacted or the dialogue could have changed. Because the one thing that we want students to understand is we're all human, but being human also hopefully comes with some type of empathy instead of pity, that you are a good listener and not just hearing what somebody said, but you're listening, you're internalizing. And sometimes kids don't need answers right away. They just need to be heard. So here's the first response.
All right. So again, these are just some different responses on how a teacher could or should or did respond. We'll let you decide which ones are could, should, or would. Well, are you sure you should be riding the bus here? Wouldn't Desert Hot Springs be a better fit for you?
So should a teacher say that?
No.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll go over some potential ways they could respond as well.
You know what you should do? Try to get up earlier so you can be on time.
No.
Correct.
Well, I was just really surprised that as a transfer student, you would be late so often. I thought you'd do a better job of getting here on time.
No.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. You poor thing. How awful of me.
No.
Okay, I see some heads nodding. Yes and no. Let's talk about that for a minute. In this scenario or in this potential answer, what emotion are you hearing from the teacher?
Pity.
Pity.
And how does that make a student feel?
Pitiful.
Pretty simple, right?
I also hear that they're blaming the student for feeling bad.
Mhm.
That it's like, oh, it's too bad you misinterpreted it. And it almost sounds sarcastic to say, oh, how awful of me.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
I agree with you guys, but I'm a head shaker saying that because the alternatives were really bad. And depending on the tone, for this person to say how off of me, it's true, it was awful of you.
Yep.
And how the student receives it is the other thing, because I would take how awful of you poor thing, I think, is the first thing that sets it off as being more pity versus and pitiful versus what's the opposite of pity and pitiful? What's another word?
Patronizing.
A little bit, but more on the positive side.
Empathy.
Empathy.
Yes. Thank you, Adrian.
Yes, empathy. So Sue's going to read us an empathetic response on something that would be appropriate for the comment from the teacher.
Okay. And actually, before I read the response, something else that I always think of is not only how the student feels, but what message is that sending to the other students in the class on what's okay and what's not okay. So, all right, you want to click to the next screen?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So a good sample response would have been, thank you for having the courage to be honest and share your feelings with me. That sounds like it hurt. I realize that being spoken to like that in front of others is demeaning and must have been hard to take. I'm sorry. Anybody else have any other ideas of how this could have been better dealt with?
No, this sounds good.
Yeah. I also thought it was really brave of the student to just approach the teacher after class, because a lot of times what we see is when someone says something to a student that is hurtful, what do they actually often do instead of talking to a teacher after class?
They handle it right there.
They handle it right
They
there.
disrupt-
And in many ways, that could come out by acting up. That could come out by shutting down and not paying attention. That can come by not wanting to return to that class anymore, all kinds of ways.
Yes, because oftentimes I've had enough students come to me saying that a teacher either embarrassed them or put them on the spot. And one of the practices that we're trying to instill at Desert Hot Springs High School, and I know some of the other schools, especially if a teacher and a student have a conflict where as a person on the outside, I can see that it was a misunderstanding. We try to get the teacher and the student together to have a restorative conference so that they can both understand where each other is coming from, and hopefully it will not happen again, or they'll have the tools that if they see themselves going down that road, they will say, you know what, back up. And hopefully it's the teacher that can identify this definite for sure. But so a lot of the students realize, you know what I said to the teacher was not fair. It was not right. And during the meeting, the restorative conference is when they're able to actually give the why behind the what in order to move forward. And that's something that I hold near and dear to my practice, is if I can understand the why behind the what, it doesn't excuse their behavior, but it definitely makes it a little bit clearer.
I feel like this last sample response, although better than the other ones, the teacher still doesn't own their part in it. I don't know, accepting, maybe even validating what they learned from the student, sharing their, how they felt about it. I don't know, still doesn't feel like it's enough.
Well, you know, and Judy, I like the point that I would like to make to what you're saying is this student went up right after, and this is the dialogue that took place so say if they had 24 hours to kind of sleep on it and really reflect, maybe like you're saying, the answer would have come back with a little bit more oomph to it, but right on the spot, this happened right after class. That may be where the teacher is in their processing.
And I think it also comes down to, how does the teacher act the next time it happens? Do they repeat it? Do they maybe not say anything but still roll their eyes? So was that apology just to be say something that they thought was the right thing to say, or did they really internalize that maybe that child has something else going on outside of their control?
Yes, exactly.
May I share something, or
Oh,
just
please. Yes, absolutely.
in regards to what was just shared, I think something additional that could be done is in terms of taking that extra step. If the student has the courage to walk up to the teacher and voice, their feelings about what just happened, and the teacher happens to respond, I think an additional step that could take place would be, as you said, 24 hours later, the next day, address it in front of class and offer an apology in front of everyone, not just in private to the student, because the other students heard the negative comment that impacted, so that then the children can say, oh, this person realized I made a mistake. We cannot take this information and use it in a negative way later on ourselves. Whereas if the teacher does not address it later, or the adult does not address it later, I think that the other children that were involved, that were present and witnessed, can walk away and say, well, if they didn't do anything about it, this means this is okay. And maybe we can do it too. And then if they do it, and someone says, this is not okay, they can come back and say, well, you didn't say anything about it. I don't know if I'm making sense in regarding.
No,
You are.
that makes, yes.
You are, because it happened before. I have a lot of children. That's why I always have a lot of these stories. But when my one of my kids was in kindergarten, and there was another kid in there who drank these, I don't know, these little inshore drinks, but it was the kid drinks. And so the one little girl used to give her drinks away because she didn't like them. Well, my daughter, she drank chocolate ones because she had a health issue. We was trying to help her gain weight. Well, she came to school with one. It was halfway drunk. And the teacher immediately said, you stole that, in front of the whole class. And so they never called me. They sent her to the office. And so when she got to me, I went to the school the next day. I said, this was her drink. How dare you embarrass her like that? And she did not. She apologized to her, but she did not apologize in front of the class. So from that day on, anything that came up missing, they accused her of stealing it. And so that was kindergarten. So that just made, now she's not trusted, and now she's embarrassed. But, I don't know, she a very different child, because she didn't let that tear her spirit down, but it was just the fact that anytime something came up missing, they always said she had it. Oh, she took it. Check her bag. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the powerful things when somebody says a comment or instills a microaggression in front of a whole class, is even with, quote, an apology, unless there's changed behavior, some of that image can't be undone for a lot of these students. That's how they internalize it as well.
Exactly. And I think of, they say it takes 21 days to start a new habit, or to have a new habit, but how long does it take to erase these kinds of memories on our students? And I think for a lot of our kids, it's part of the, Dr. Muhammad talked about the backpack and the invisible backpack. These are the things that they carry in that invisible backpack. And then it just becomes a part of them. Or the unfortunate part is, oh, I've heard that before. Now what's going to happen? And so I know, even for myself at school, instead of, if I know in my heart of hearts, a student may have done something, I will ask. I don't say, why did you? I say, hey, can you tell me about this? Or so that it's not accusatory, and they will hopefully be a little bit more open to share what's going on. So you might say, why does this matter? And how are our students affected? I'm going to show you 2 video clips that will put a different face to what we're speaking about.
I identify as a Hispanic American.
Afro.
No clue.
Try the other one.
There we go.
It's not showing on the screen.
You can't see it?
No, maybe refresh.
No, it's my
Be Latina,
and I saw the screen pause. I apologize.
That's okay. There you go.
Hispanic American.
Afro Latina,
Mexican American, Chicana, Mexican,
Afro Latino.
to my family, I am Puerto Rican. To the country, I am Latina.
growing up, I felt as though I was too Black to be Latina and too Latina to be Black.
Chicana, I think, identifies more of the political and social values that I hold more than just where my family's from.
I don't feel pressure to be more Latino or American. I'm comfortable with who I am, like culturally.
How can I be Mexican when I'm pressured to be more American? How can I be American when I'm pressured to be more Mexican?
My family growing up wanted me to, stick with my Hispanic roots, but also did not want me to show those roots to the world.
A lot of the times people didn't even know that I was Cuban because I guess I don't look like your typical Cuban.
My mom is Mexican, so I've always grown up with her culture, with her language, while being American doesn't come up as easily.
I've gotten people assume, even other Latinos assume that I'm white or that I'm not Latina or Chicana. It definitely hurts, but at the same time, it's not something that I can control. I think I can do my best to project that identity.
It's hilarious when you walk into a room and they don't think you're Caucasian enough, you're not American enough, you're not Latino enough.
Being Latino isn't as accepted as it should be.
So it makes me feel pressured to fit a certain mold here in the United States. But now that I'm older, it's more like it's what I make of it.
That doesn't stop me from being proud of who I am and where I'm from.
And then ultimately, I think what you settle on is how you view yourself.
We're kind of stripped in a lot of cases of our Spanish tongue and our Spanish heritage and told it's really important that you only speak English.
Because if you're from a Spanish-speaking country and you can't speak Spanish, it's harder for you to connect with the people there.
And not being ashamed when you do speak Spanish, but also not being ashamed if you weren't taught it.
Okay, so Spanish is not my first language because my parents were afraid of me being discriminated against because they were discriminated against. And now they're hurting me because I'm not Latino enough because Spanish is not my first language. But they don't know that I couldn't speak Spanish because my parents were afraid of me getting hurt.
My parents have already done all the work for me. And that's why I feel like I have like a bright future ahead of me because the work's already been done. All I have to do is like harvest what has been put on the ground.
But it's about me and other Afro-Latinos working really hard and continuing to make strides.
I feel like this country has a lot of opportunity for me.
When you have pushed another human being towards the light, towards positivity, towards a voting booth, towards using their power, you are powerful.
People are telling us as Hispanics that we don't belong here. That's kind of motivated us to join together as a Hispanic community and say, we do belong here. And despite what you're saying, I will prove to you why I do belong here.
Thank you. And does anyone have any comments about that video, or I'm going to show another short segment as well? Okay.
Can you say something in Spanish?
Yeah, I can.
Hablo inglés. I do. Do you speak English? Why don't you speak Spanish? Why don't you speak Spanish? I mean, it's the second most used language in the world. Are you an immigrant? Yep. Just like you and your family. Did your parents come here illegally? No. Ooh, can you teach me how to dance Mexican? Is that a TikTok thing? Oh, you must love tequila. Yeah, and you love plain tasting generic soda water, right? You love Cinco de Mayo, right? I love it too. Yeah, I do, but we don't do all this. You guys made that up. Do you like have a really big family? Yeah, actually, I do. It's part of our plan to actually get our land back. Is it even safe to travel to Mexico right now? Yeah, it's just as safe as crossing the street. I bet you cook the best tacos. Yeah, I do. I also make a really great chicken piccata. Why don't you like spicy foods? Okay, because it makes my tummy hurt. And what? Why are you Latina women loco? Crazy? Who's calling us crazy? Oh, I bet you are superstitious. And I bet you're bad luck. I'll sage later. So what's your favorite telenovela? Oh, you know what? My favorite one is the one where like the girl slaps the other girl because she's in love with the guy, but the guy turns out to be the girl's brother, and then turns out he was a twin. Hey, can you like call me papi? No. Wait, so why are Latinos always late? Only when we have to meet up with people we really don't like. Makes the time shorter. Oop, gotta go.
And so, yes, that video did kind of make light of the situation, but those are all, can anybody speak to situations like that?
Yeah, it kind of happens a lot. I mean, especially like, I mean, my daughter, my other daughter, she wears her hair in all different kind of natural hairdos. And she gets that a lot. Can I touch your hair? Your hair is really soft for a Black person. You know, it's just, and then my other daughter, she's Puerto Rican and Black. And so she gets that a lot. Do you speak Spanish? Why don't you speak Spanish? Are you really Puerto Rican? So, yeah. It's
yeah, my son the same thing. He's white, curly hair now, long hair. He's half Puerto Rican anyway, so he didn't tell anybody. But he can speak Spanish, but they spoke Spanish with grammar only inside the house. But now he told one guy, "I'm Puerto Rican," and he tell everybody now. But they laugh of him sometimes, and they say, "Well, you don't speak Spanish." He say, "I don't," but he does. He does want to speak Spanish in school now, so he's not ashamed, but no, he doesn't want to tell everybody, but now everyone know in school. So anyway.
But that's a good point, because there are people who on purpose do not teach their children Spanish, like they said in the video. But what happens is then the connection between the grandparents and then the grandchild, there's no connection because they can't communicate with each other. And so for me, that's heartbreaking in a sense that I couldn't imagine what it would be like if I couldn't talk to my grandmother or my grandfather. I would be lost. Or I think if my kids couldn't talk to my mom, what that would be like. And yeah, of course, there's workarounds. You speak through someone else, or there's a few words that are known, but it's just completely different.
And now it's worse with me because my first language is French. I'm from Canada, so he doesn't speak French. He can understand my parents now, my family. So I have to teach him French now. So
wow,
I know.
Yes. Okay, so here's another video illustrating the impact of microaggressions.
Are a problem?
Oh, you're so well spoken.
Just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite.
Ugh, it's a compliment.
Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while...
No, where are you really from?
Cleveland?
Sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date...
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me?
Going grocery shopping.
You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
Commuting to work.
So when are you going to have a baby?
Watching TV.
We have to keep the Redskins name. It's part of our culture and history.
Or just walking down the street with your partner.
I couldn't even tell you were gay.
Mosquitoes seem to pop up everywhere.
Do you know John? Give me shopping advice. I love Cher too.
And getting bit by mosquitoes every goddamn day.
Can I touch your hair?
Multiple times a day.
So pretty.
Can I touch it, please?
Can I please?
Is fucking annoying. And makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes. Which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares? Just another angry Black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years.
Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow!
My dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time.
You're all so exotic. Wow.
And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions.
So I appreciate this video and the way it replicates the toxicity and the poison that a microaggression can be, right? It's like at first it might just be one little bite, but if you're being bit all the time, day after day, then eventually that's toxic, it's poison. And then how does that, when we're bringing it back to the classroom of our students here in our district, like, or how does that affect them when they're sitting in the classroom and it's been day after day, year after year of these bites that have now become poisonous? How do you react when you're basically poisoned with how you've been treated?
I would really like to see this type of training for all the school districts, all the teachers, but to have it mandatory and not something where you can voluntarily, you know, choose to go to participate in a conference like this, because I really think that it, as it said in the film, that a lot of people don't understand that this is something that happens all the time, and they're, you know, and they're not aware of the comments that they make are microaggressions. So I don't know where to begin as far as having this be mandatory, but I just wanted to say the films that you just showed, all of them are brilliant.
Thank you. So I encourage, oh, go ahead, Vera.
Oh, no, I was going to say, to piggyback off what you just said, that's one of the foundational pieces that the ARC, the Anti-Racist Coalition, it started right on the heels of George Floyd's murder. And our district is now committed to, we've always been committed to it, but we are definitely taking action and putting our money where our mouth is. We are an anti-racist district. The training that, this is a piece of what we do, and I'm one of the educators. Sue is one of the educators, where we have conscious education workshops where we take teachers through a 2 or 3 day workshop that helps them identify some of their own unconscious bias, and then how it impacts the school, how it impacts people around them. And in the same breath, what are the next steps for you to take in order to help your classroom become an anti-racist environment, to where kids of all nations, all nationalities, of every walk of life feels comfortable in a classroom. But the second part of that is, if situations do take place, teachers are then educated on how to diffuse, how to educate their students in those situations.
Is there contact information that will be available?
Yes,
okay.
I'm going to put it on the next screen. This is our question and answer portion. If we have any questions, if not, what I'll do is you can put your questions in the chat, and then we can address them. And this last slide, this last video is kind of like a good culmination of the impact microaggressions have on students. And if you are an educator, just kind of put yourself in the seat of your students during this time. And yeah, so here you go.
You're frozen, I think.
Annabelise, dear white teachers, and teachers of all colors for that matter, please learn to pronounce the names of your black and brown students correctly. You know, names like Florangel, Kervin, Fatimata Binta, Elvin, Annabelise. Yeah, those names. We have at least 3 problems that occur when a teacher doesn't really pronounce the name of their student properly, or doesn't really try and gives up on it. Number 1, you create an environment where the student doesn't really feel comfortable because there's no trust. Would you trust someone who didn't pronounce your name properly? Probably not. So this is the environment that you're creating when you can't learn to pronounce their name properly, but yet you expect them to do everything you tell them to. Number 2, you're not teaching them to have perseverance. tolerance. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is you're teaching them to give up. If you tried pronouncing their name once and then said, you know what, I'm going to call you Betsy because Beatriz is too hard to say, what you're really telling your students right now is, if it's too hard, then just change it. Number 3, the last thing is common courtesy. I mean, my God, you wouldn't want someone to mispronounce your name, right? And if they did over and over and over again, what would you do? You guys can call me Miss Stephanie. Can you say Miss Stephanie? Estefani. No, it's pronounced Stephanie. Estefani. Stephanie, it's easy. Can you just say Stephanie? God. Right, you wouldn't like it if it happened to you. So please learn to say their names properly. I guarantee you it'll go a long way in the classroom. If you don't know how to say their name, ask them again, ask them to say it slower, ask them to say it in their native language, and then spell it out phonetically in your attendance sheet. My God, we have a lot of other strategies of how to teach them, but why don't we have any strategies on learning as a teacher how to teach ourselves to better communicate with our students?
All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We're gonna put our contact up in the screen. While Vera's doing that, I want to remind everybody, when you are ready to leave the session, don't leave the Zoom. You're just gonna leave the breakout room, and then you'll go into your second session.
And we thank you for being an attentive audience with great questions, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your
Remember.
time.
Thank you.
I wanted to just say briefly, I do agree that it's wonderful that the teachers have the opportunity to take workshops regarding this and offering assistance to the students later. But it would be wonderful to see our students also have the opportunity to take a class regarding this, because that would make a bigger impact within their own classmates at school. And I believe that they could all work together, gradually bringing it out back to their homes and to the community. So I think that would just make a huge impact. Hopefully in the future, we could see it as part of the classes that are offered in school.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Remember, don't leave Zoom, just the breakout room.